Both Lucas and Amber liked Christmas a lot, but Graham, who slept just down the hall, did not. How Graham hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be he wanted to stay up all night. It could be, perhaps, that his hats were too tight, but I think the most likely reason of all may have been he thought eating was no fun at all. But whatever the reason, tight hats or not eating, he sat there on Christmas Eve, his last hours fleeting, staring out from his room with a sour, Grahamish frown at the tree and the lights in their tiny fake town, for he knew that his parents, both Amber and Lou, were busy now rapping and giggling too. And they're hanging our stockings, he thought with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he thought with his fat fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to keep Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew that his mom and his dad would wake bright and early, they'd be merry and glad, and then just imagine the fun to be had. That's one thing he hated, the fun made him mad. Then his folks, mom and dad, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would start with Taylor pudding and then some roast beast, which was another thing Graham couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. His parents, so obsessed with him being small, they'd turn on some music or Christmas cartoons, the ones with the colorful, catchiest tunes, and they'd start with a prance, then they'd dance, 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 dance. He would try to dance too, and sometimes try to sing, and shy little Graham thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 67 weeks I've put up with it now. I must stop Christmas from coming, but how? Then he had an idea, an awful idea. Our Graham got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, Graham then laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he cackled and cooed, what a great Grahamish trick! With this coat and this hat, I'm like baby Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. Then Graham looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there are none to be found. Did that stop Grinchy Graham? No, Graham sneered and said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Moose, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags on some big empty sacks, took a break in his car, and he ate a few snacks. Down the hall, Graham did sneak to double check and take a peek. In their bedrooms so dark, quiet snores filled the air. Graham's parents were dreaming sweet dreams without care. So Graham slinked to the family room with a smile so rare. Graham fell only once, maybe twice is all, on his way to the place on the wall where his parents hung stockings all up in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present, Pop-Tarts and video games, candy and cash, board games and books. He even took Balderdash, and he stuffed them in bags in the car that was red, and he hid all the bags one by one on his bed. Then he slunk to the freezer. He took his folks' feast. He took Taylor pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the freezer. He cleared all the holes. He even took Grandpa Herman's cinnamon rolls. Then he stuffed all the food in his car with glee. Now, Graham said, to undecorate the tree. And then Graham grabbed some ornaments and threw them down at the floor, when he heard a small sound like the creak of a door. He turned around fast, and he saw his mom, Amber Sue. Amber, that's who is out after 2. Graham had been caught by his sleepwalking mother, who'd got out of bed thinking she needed something or other. She stared at his suit and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you ruining our Christmas tree? Why? But you know that wee Graham was so smart and so slick, he thought up a plan, and he thought it up quick. He stared at Amber Sue and just tried to look cute. Then he babbled the best lie he could possibly do. Amber Sue stared confused at this small man in red, and she stood there a minute scratching her head. She wasn't sure what tiny Santa had said. She got a glass of water and went back to bed. And when she'd gone back to her room with the cup, Graham went to the tree and he messed it all up. Then the last thing he took was a picture of Santa right off its hook. He went back to his room by himself, naughty tot, thinking out in the family room Christmas was not. And the one speck of food that had gotten loose was a crumb that was too small, even for Moose. Graham stacked it all up on a pile on his bed. He stacked up their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3 giant feet up onto the bed in his room, he wanted to dump the gifts down to their doom. pooh-pooh on Amber and Lou, he was grammishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang up open a minute or two. Then my parents, those two, will both cry, boo-hoo. That's a sound, grinned wee Gram, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and then Gram put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising behind his door. It started out low, then it started to roar. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He peeked out his bedroom, then Gram popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. His parents, Amber and Lucas so tall, dancing, without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, they danced just the same. And then Gram, with his Gram feet ice cold in the hall, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could they dance with no presents at all? Christmas came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled 3 minutes till his puzzler was sore. Then wee Gram thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, the tailors, they say, that Gram got a new hat, one the right size that day. And the minute his head wasn't squeezed quite so tight, he brought back the gifts that he took in the night. He brought back the toys, boxes filled up the holes, and he himself ate some cinnamon rolls.